France's President Emmanuel Macron's recent remarks that NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the world's most powerful military alliance, is quote-unquote brain dead, had served as a useful wake-up call to all alliance members just at the time of NATO's 70th birthday year. The leaders of major Western states are arriving in London for what has been described as one of the most important NATO summits in its 70th anniversary. And U.S. President Donald Trump has entered a war of words with his French and Turkish counterparts, slamming France's President Emmanuel Macron for his brain-dead comment.
I heard that President Macron said NATO is brain dead. I think that's very insulting to a lot of different forces, including a man that does a very good job in running NATO. No, it has a great purpose, especially with the fact that NATO is becoming much more flexible in terms of what it looks at. But I was very surprised. I'd like to ask you, what did you think? He made a statement about NATO being brain dead. What did you think?
Well, that's not the case, because actually NATO is active, NATO is agile, NATO is adapting, and we have just implemented the largest reinforcement of collective defense since the end of the Cold War.
The French president had made the controversial comment in an interview with The Economist on the 7th of November. Macron criticized a lack of coordination between NATO members over Turkey's recent operation in Syria, to which the Turkish president later responded, asking Macron to check his own brain.
Ne diyor? NATO'nun beyin ölümü gerçekleşmiştir. Sayın Macron, bak Türkiye'den sesleniyorum. NATO'da da söyleyeceğim. Önce sen kendi beyin ölümünü bir kontrol ettir.
While speaking to reporters in London alongside NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, Trump went on to say that Macron's assessment of the military alliance was insulting to a lot of different forces.
It's a tough statement, though, when you make a statement like that. That is a very, very nasty statement to essentially 28, including them, 28 countries.
French President Emmanuel Macron's blunt verdict ahead of the two-day NATO summit in Britain drew strong reactions from European peers who believe that Europe still needs to rely heavily on the transatlantic military alliance for its defense. But the French leader made no apologies for his brain-dead remarks and instead defended his statement, stating that it had served as a useful wake-up call for all the alliance nations.
Et donc il fallait peut-être un wake-up call pour continuer dans les anglicismes. Il a été donné, je m'en félicite, et je me félicite que chacun maintenant considère que la priorité est plutôt de réfléchir à nos finalités et nos objectifs stratégiques.
The top focus here on WION Dispatch is the 70th anniversary summit of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, for which leaders of the member nations have started arriving in London. That's where the talks are taking place. Trump and Macron, the U.S. President and his French counterpart, in a war of words heading in to the summit, even as Turkey's president too has hit back at French President Macron's statement that NATO is brain dead. However, as we've been telling you, the French president has been not shying away from that brain dead remark. In fact, has openly defended it as well. And we are tracking the latest on the summit meeting of NATO leaders in London. So on NATO's 70th anniversary, where France's President Emmanuel Macron's recent remarks that NATO is brain dead had served as a useful wake-up call to all alliance members just at the time of NATO's 70th birthday year. And leaders of major Western states are arriving in London as we speak for what has been described as one of the most important NATO summits in its 70th anniversary. We have our correspondent Lucy Huff now joining us live for the latest on that.
Yes, hello. Yes, as you say, an important celebration of the 70th anniversary of the alliance, but troubled times. As you say, those controversial comments from the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, that the alliance was brain dead in its response to the Turkish incursion into northern Syria. We have had a response from Donald Trump, the U.S. President, at an impromptu conference at Winfield House in the home of the U.S. Ambassador Woody Johnson in central London today. He's called those comments nasty and insulting and said that France needed the NATO alliance more than anyone. That comment from the US President. There is a conference going on behind me now in Westminster, much of Westminster on lockdown, heavy police presence this morning. The US President due to hold bilateral talks with President Macron just after 2 o'clock this afternoon. He'll then meet Prince Charles at Clarence House, and it's then to a reception at Buckingham Palace hosted by the Queen, but also attended by the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the opposition leader, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn. Of course, controversy there due to this continued speculation that the NHS might form part of any US-UK trade deal. Boris Johnson is expected to try and take on a peacemaker role in those amid those rising tensions within the NATO alliance.
Right, Lucy, but then after Macron's comments, do we see, Paris maybe breaking away from NATO? The formation of NATO is essential during the Cold War. Ever since those questions of its relevance have always remained. And now, after 70 years, those questions have certainly come back to haunt NATO.
Yes, absolutely. I think that will be that row, those comments by Macron will form a key part of this two-day summit. As I say, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson very keen to ease those rising tensions between those two key players in the alliance. There will, of course, be further talks tomorrow, and Prime Minister Johnson is due to meet Emmanuel Macron today. As I said, President Trump will be meeting President Macron this afternoon in the centre of London before that reception at Buckingham Palace. But he has made a further intervention into the electoral process. We are, of course, just days away from a winter poll here in the UK. President Trump said he wouldn't be making an intervention, but then said that he was a big fan of Brexit, that he thought Boris Johnson was very capable as part of that impromptu conference at Winfield House this morning. So already much drama coming out of the two-day summit here in London amid a busy schedule across the course of the rest of the day.
Lucy Haff joining us with that live update straight from London. Thank you, Lucy, for being with us here on WION Dispatch.